Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Gene Bott on the line. He's owner over at Wasatch CPA Services. Gene, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. It's a pleasure to join you today.
So, Gene, excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to talk about how small business owners can cut their tax bills. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing over at Wasatch CPA Services. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Well, thank you. We are advanced tax and accounting services. So what we like to look at is how we can help people reduce their tax liabilities and how we can help them grow their profit margin through CFO services and other advanced strategies.
That's awesome. And at the end of this, Gene, I'm going to give you the opportunity to leave your contact information, website, however you want people to follow up with you so they can connect with you and your team. But I do want to make sure that the right types of individuals and or companies connect with you. What's typically a good fit for to work with Wasatch CPA Services?
You know, we're an excellent fit for companies that are looking to grow their bottom line or companies that have been experiencing growth. Typically, we like to look for companies that are anywhere from $150,000 plus in net take-home pay. Obviously, the more income they're bringing home, the more we're able to do from a tax planning point of view. But we can also help them in the CFO services anywhere along there to help improve their bottom line.
That's awesome. Let's dive into today's topic, Gene. So how small business owners can cut their tax bills. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, the more money you keep in your pocket, the less you're paying, in taxes. Obviously, the more you can invest in your business. I mean, just things go well. So, where do you want to start this topic? Because you have my attention because I want to cut my tax bill, and I know the business owners that are also listening want to too.
Yeah. You know, I'd love to start with just talking a little bit about the tax code and how it is that we can actually do some services helping people reduce their tax liability. So one of the things that people may be interested to know is there's over 3,000 pages of tax code, and then there are over 70,000 pages of documents out there outlining how you apply the tax code in businesses and in individual lives. And so with that many pages of documents telling you what you need to do in taxes, there are tons of opportunities, several loopholes, several deductions, all sorts of things that people are missing. And so that's where our specialty comes in. We make sure that we are actively involved in being on top of those tax strategies and knowing what it is that you need to do in your business to help take advantage of them and lower those taxes. We are a part of a tax planning community where we get together just a couple hours every day and just go over the changes that are happening in the tax world and the different strategies that are coming out from that. With all of that, we have over 110 different strategies that we can look at, kind of evaluating people's different circumstances and picking the ones that are right for them. And just about every business out there that is at least making $50,000 plus a year can use 5 to 10 strategies in their business, and most of them are using 2 or 3. And so that's where we come in.
Wow. So, where do you find? Because nobody's intentionally, right? Like nobody wants to intentionally pay more taxes. So there's a lot of smart people out there listening to this that are like, yeah, we're like, I'm probably already in a good situation. And then they meet with you. I know this happens to you every day. They meet with you, and you're like, wait a minute, I was missing this. I was missing this. What? How, this can be done? I didn't even know that. Where do you find that a lot of people go wrong? And I don't mean like on a specific tax strategy. I don't mean on a specific, because obviously every company is going to be different, right? Every company, every industry, that's all going to vary and need to be customized. But I do know that certain themes tend to arise over and over and over again, the more clients you work with. What do you find are some of those common themes where people are just missing the mark?
That's an excellent question. The vast majority of the time, I find the problem is that they think they're already covered with somebody they know. They have a close relation that knows taxes a little bit, or they have a CPA or a tax preparer that they already have doing their returns, and they think that these guys have them covered. And it's not to say that the people that they have doing these are bad at what they do. They're actually really good at it most of the time. We find that most preparers out there are doing a very good job making sure that they're up on the tax code and that they're filing some returns correctly. The problem is they're not usually paying these guys to actually go in and do some tax planning work. They're paying for the compliance end of things. And so that's where you come in and they're doing an excellent job, but they're not going the whole 9 yards. It's kind of like going into a general practitioner to get work done on brain surgery or something along those lines. You've got guys that are extremely good at what they do, but they cannot specialize.
It makes a lot of sense, and what I've found, and I just see it, and it's natural too, right? So you start your business, and maybe it's really small, and you go with somebody locally, or like, and it just happens to be the first person you got a referral, and you're making like zero revenue, right? And assuming you bootstrapped, right, and you didn't raise a bunch of money. So now, fast forward 5 years, fast forward 10 years down the line, you've been with the same person the whole time. It's not saying you have to replace the person, but it is saying that it's possible that your business and the strategies that make sense for your business have possibly, maybe you've outgrown some of the things that your current company offers or that you're working with. Maybe you need to add on. It's just like anything else, like a different level of consulting as the company gets bigger. When you go from a small company to a little bit bigger, more employees, you had to change other services. You had to update other things. Depending on who you're working with, you might have to do the same thing.
That's exactly right. One of the interesting things to consider as you're looking at that also is that when you take into account how much people pay in taxes, the average tax bill takes up somewhere between 30 to 50% of somebody's income. And so it's one of the largest expenses people pay, and yet less than 10% of the population out there spend more than 2 hours a year on it. It's actually quite astounding when you think about it.
Wow. And I get it. And it's one of those things where you're like, where I think people just don't maybe always know that there's alternatives out there for them. I feel like they think, okay, well, this is the way it is. This is what they said. So this is all there is. And then you kind of just give up the fight, so to speak. So what do you think? So for listening, if they're like, okay, you have their attention, they're thinking about, all right, maybe I fall in that camp of only spending 2 hours a year on it. What are some of the things that they should start thinking about now as they kind of reframe their mindset or thought process around taxes? Like, what's that low-hanging fruit that they can start thinking about today?
That's an excellent question as well. One of the things they should consider, obviously, is when is the last time I've spoken with my tax preparer? Have we had conversations throughout the year to analyze my situation, see if the changes that have happened for me impact my tax world? And should there be some changes happening in my company? If you're only speaking with your tax guy once a year, then I guarantee you're only paying them to do tax preparation, and you need to start looking at some tax planning work. And so that's probably the easiest tell right there, is how often are you speaking with them? And if you're not speaking with them regularly, I'd recommend first to push them and see if the tax planning, the legitimate comprehensive tax planning, is something that they do. And if they do, great. Go ahead and work with them. If they're not, start reaching out and finding somebody that will, somebody like me. There's about 5% of the population of CPAs and tax preparers out there that are actively involved in the community that I'm in, and so they're more than me out there that they can reach out to and find and get some tax work done. But of course, they can also reach out to me. I'd be happy to help.
That's awesome, Gene. And and I think that's a great transition. So if somebody is listening to this and they want to learn more about what you and your team are doing over at Wasatch CPA Services, Gene, what's the best way for them to reach out and then to connect with your team?
So the fastest response usually comes through email. My email address is genebott@wasatchcpaservices.com, and if they go to wasatchcpaservices.com, they can find my email address and my partner's email address there, and reach out to us. We also are pretty responsive to phone calls. If they want to give us a call, the number is 385-444-1023. And then they can also look up on social media through LinkedIn or Facebook. We are pretty responsive there as well.
Fantastic. Well, Gene, it's been awesome talking with you today. Really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing more about all the great work you're doing to help our business owners out there save on taxes. And everybody listening, if you're in that situation that Gene just mentioned, you definitely need to go check it out. That was WasatchCPAServices.com. Definitely give them a look. And also to the audience, if you're the first-time listener, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to continue the conversation over in our YouTube community. Leave us some comments on the video. And Gene, it's been awesome having you on the show. Thanks again for coming on.
You bet. Thanks for your time.